tall for me. I'm sorry I'm not a poet, so just bear with me. This is for my grandfather who passed away this month, 13 years ago. He's just like a short description of my grandparents. My grandmother is one of 11 and she's the oldest and had to drop out of school when she was in 6th grade. She's from Puerto Rico, and when I grew up I loved to read, and I used to always read to my grandmother and my grandfather, and I feel like if my grandfather was still alive I would have probably read him Walt Whitman, but he is buried where Walt Whitman's buried. He's in the same cemetery. So, this is called La Cometa Perfecta. The best thing about coming into spring was the last winter winds blowing in. They weren't too cold and they weren't too strong, just enough for the perfect kite. If only it was possible to find the perfect kite. I knew exactly what I wanted. It had to be beautiful, with vibrant colors, and it had to make all the kids at Cooper River Park super jealous. I had to be able to take right off, not even once should it come close to the ground, and it had to whoosh and swoosh as it moved through the air like a dance. Overwhelmed by the excitement, I'd rush to my grandmother's house after school to meet up with my cousin. We talk about which kite we would like to get that year. One weekend, my mother and Titi Dolly drove us to the dollar store. Dollar store toys were a privilege for poor Camden youth. We weren't allowed to complain and accepted our trips there as a treat. Our cheap kites were nowhere near perfection. They soared in the sky for half a second and came tumbling down just as fast at each try. All the way to Mama's house, we mumbled between our teeth, "Stupid plastic kites." My grandfather heard every word, and with a big smile on his face, he promised us, together, we would make the best kites ever. I thought it was a gift from God. Working with Papa meant the world to me. He knew how to make everything in his basement. "Papa, can we make them now? I want to make them, Papa. I'm so bored. There's nothing on TV. I did my homework. Papa, Papa, the good ones are almost over. Mama said so. Papa." I cried over and over through the week, and he would respond with a chuckle, not the least annoyed. "Oye, espera. Wait." On an early Saturday, Jeje and I were sitting on Mama's rough green couch, watching TV and trying to ignore the grumbles in our stomachs. The house was filled with the aroma of tostones, arroz con cantules, and pollo frito. Salsa music poured through the vents up from the basement. If you listened closely, you could hear Papa's feet stomping in rhythm across the floor, occasionally stopping so he could take a swig from his beer. Mama would hum from the kitchen and dance in rhythm too. They had always danced together, even if apart. Papa came to us with cut-up paper in his hands along with thin sticks, rope, and ribbon ties. His yellow eyes were gleaming like the sun, his dark lips stretched at each corner, and his tarred teeth shining like coal with diamonds. He laid out his materials on the floor in front of us and asked, ¿Qué hora es? The only clock that ever worked in the house was in the cocina, but neither of us felt like walking over there. "To make kites, mis niñas." Papa reached his hand to his ear and handed over his very own special pencil he used for perfect measurements and creation notes. He told me to draw, and so I drew. Papa told me that everything I drew on my kite, the sky and clouds would see, and that even God would be able to see it, and he would love my art so much. One day on the Saturday of the next week, Papa came to pick us up from the apartment. We tied the string with Papa's help, held on tight with Papa's help, picked the perfect spot with Papa's help, and let the kites take off. A strong wind ripped our paper kites in an instant, and the shreds came tumbling down. In my head, the kite flew for hours. It soared above everyone else's in that park. I had no idea what Papa was apologizing for when they broke. The entire car ride back, I talked non-stop about the event to Papa, and he would just repeat to himself, "Adios mío," between hearty laughs. The following week had been strange. It was like my mother, Mama, and Papa, and my aunts and uncles had completely disappeared. Sometimes all the adults would be in a separate room, mumbling Spanish that was too rushed to be understood. We thought maybe they were planning some big surprise for us. What could that special day be? Then it was the first day of spring. Jalila, Natalie, and I had slept over Mama's house the night before and were in the living room as the adults huddled upstairs in my grandparents' room. We were anxious, ants in our pants, waiting for them to all come downstairs so we could play outside. My grandparents' door creaked open, and in a line, the adults came down the stairs. First, my mother, her face blotched with patches of red and tan and tears. Then Titi Dolly, Jalila's mom, with a similar complexion. Natalie's mom, Titi Betsy, with her head down, a new mother and unsure how to say adult things to a 4-year-old child. And Uncle Steve, hiding in the shadow of the steps. But Mama wasn't there, and neither was Papa. Alexis, my mother choked. She looked right at me. She never looked at me that way. As if she was about to break, as if I was about to break. None of her siblings could help. They couldn't speak a word. Papa's dead. My mother was the first to move to hold me, then all of my aunts and uncle huddled around us. "I'm sorry. Me siento, bebé. I don't know what to do. Do you understand? Por favor, ayúdanos. Ay, Dios mío." And Mama didn't come down from her bedroom. I would never fly a kite again. If I did, I'd find a way to make it perfect in every possible way. I would drive to Cooper River Park and let it take off, all by myself. I would imagine so hard in that stupid sky and those stupid clouds that he's in there, and that he sees how perfect it is. And he's going to love it. He's going to love my art so much. And then I wanted to rip in shreds just as fast so I can finally forget everything. Thank you.
Honey.